The Time Worn Spire pulse rifle is back, guys, but this time with random rolls. Now if you don't know what this weapon is, well, it's an old pulse rifle from year 1 of Destiny 2, and today it's made a return in Iron Banner. So we're going to break this weapon down and see what our god rolls are for both PvE and PvP. If you've already got a good roll, let me know what you got, otherwise leave a like and subscribe for good luck, but now let's get into it. So just briefly, the Time Worn Spire is a primary kinetic 540 RPM pulse rifle, and you can get this weapon from Iron Banner. Now this weapon is pretty nice, although it's not my favourite. It does come with the new Iron Banner perks, along with a brand new perk introduced this season called Iron Reach, but we'll get to that along with all the god rolls in just a moment. But looking at the initial stats of the weapon, we have a right direction bounce with a recoil of 60, which to me kind of puts me off from using the weapon as I main pulse rifles in PvP, and I'm not sure if this is something I'm going to use often, but you can just slot in a counterbalance mod to help with that issue there. However though, if you are wanting some good rolls, then I'm going to take you through that and share with you what my favourite rolls are and what I think are the top god rolls. Now this weapon does have a high RPM for a pulse rifle of 540, so the handling isn't going to be perfect, and that's what we'll want to focus on improving. So let's start with slot 1, our scope. So for both PvE and PvP, I would definitely go with a red dot 2 for that plus 10 handling and plus 6 range. But the clean shot is also not a bad option either. Both are going to greatly help with improving our overall handling and range. But in the second slot for the magazine for PvP, we're going to go with ricochet rounds, and that is again because we're increasing that range and the way we handle the weapon in PvP, and having that increased stability, range and handling will really make it much easier to kill enemies at a further distance. But if you're going for a PvE roll, then I'd go with flared magwell or armor piercing rounds. Both here are a good option, but for my PvE one, I would go with flared magwell for that quicker reload, or even a pended mag, because in PvE we're all about killing multiple enemies one after another, and having that plus 15 reload speed or additional mags will really help out with that. And what would help even more if you slot in a pulse rifle loader. But if you decide to go with armor piercing, that will help against shielded enemies, as it's not a bad perk considering we're using a kinetic weapon. Now moving into the more important perks in PvP for slot 3, you want to go with moving target or quick draw. I would go for quick draw for that faster draw time, and that being with a 540 RPM would just make it feel so much better. But if you decide to go with moving target, that's also pretty nice to help you strafe more, but I don't feel it's really needed. And if you don't have good handling perks, then I honestly wouldn't bother with it, because for me, I'd probably not be able to keep it under control, but that could just be me. But if you're going to go with a PvE roll, you should go with Feed and Frenzy or Subsistence. I'm not really a big fan of Subsistence, so I would just go with Feed and Frenzy, because you should always be getting rapid kills when in most PvE activities. But moving on to slot 4, we have the Iron Grip or Rampage for PvP. Now I'm not a fan of the Iron Banner perks as they take away too much off, like negative 40 stability and stuff like that. But the Iron Grip isn't a bad option, as you can just use a pulse rifle loader to help bring some of that reload speed back that you've lost. But I'd go for Rampage because you're not losing any stats there, and overall Rampage is pretty good. You could also use a Rampage spec mod to make it even better, but I wouldn't recommend losing your counterbalance mod for that. So I'd probably just stay with the Iron Grip. But for PvE, you could also go for Rampage, but you also have one for all, which I'd probably choose over Rampage. Both are as good as each other, but one for all you won't need a Rampage spec mod, and it pretty much acts in the same way. But if you do want a mixed roll to work for both PvE and PvP, then Feed and Frenzy and Rampage is what I would choose. But I wouldn't sacrifice Quick Draw for Feed and Frenzy specifically to play in PvP, and don't forget your Masterwork. I'll try and go for a stability masterwork, but range and handling are also good options for PvP. But for PvE, range is probably a better option. So overall, this weapon is pretty nice if you have all those handling rolls. It can be pretty good in PvP for a 540 pulse. But guys, that's all for this video. I hope you did find this one useful. If not, give me your feedback in the comments and leave a rating, as it's much appreciated. I have other weapon god roll guides out on my channel, and I cover a fair amount of topics for new players too, so subscribe, come and say hi and check out those videos if you wish to. But for now, I hope you find those god rolls that you're after, and I'll catch you all in the next video.